human body is miraculous and amazing and multidimensional. We can be sort of tricked into thinking that something outside of us can fix that. It can help us heal. And yet the healing energy is given to us within our own connection to soul and spirit.
If he's only addressing it on a physical level, it's not going to really get to the core of it if it has to do with fear, trauma, and other beings taking over the body.
It's not a one energy healing fixes everybody. It's being in communication with spirit and creating space for whatever seems so out of control and chaotic to begin to come back to a recognition of itself as love.
Hello and welcome to The Higher Vibe. I'm your host, Jean Roorda. We're having conversations with the psychic friends, and today I have with me Yvonne Donaldson. She's an energy seer, healer, and spiritual guide, and a dear friend. Hello, Yvonne.
Hello, Jean.
Welcome.
With you. Thank you.
Yay. Yvonne and we're both mothers, and I love chatting with another psychic mom because we have so much to relate to about so many levels of being a mother, both the raising of children, watching these beings come into our lives even from before we are pregnant, and then having the experience of being in a family dynamic together with our children and partner, and so many levels of energy to look at there and be aware of. And I'd just love for us to communicate a little about that and share about our experiences being, the word psychic has a lot of energy on it, but just being more spiritually aware of each of our family members as the souls that they are and what kind of karmic ties we have in the family dynamic with our children, partner, our families of origin, all of that. So I would love for you to share, Yvonne, a little about when that awareness first hit for you. Like, what was your path of awakening to, oh, I've got a little bit more going on here than meets the eye, right? Like, we're not just bodies. We have a lot more depth to our beingness. And when did that first land for you? And what was your experience in that?
Wow. Okay. Like so many of us as a child, I could sense seeing things, feel things, know things, see things that maybe other people in the room are not tuned to and didn't have language for and didn't really have any guidance for it. So it was just kind of a rocky road of like trying to figure out how to camouflage in this world so that I could survive both in the family and in the world. And so in terms of children, we could start with the origin story of my first child. And so all these years later, now we affectionately call them baby beings. And that's the soul spiritual essence of the being before they come in through our body and get their own body, right? So I had been programmed growing up to not have children. It was a dangerous world. It was a scary world. It was a scarce world. People were starving all over the world. How could I possibly consider having children? So I'm like, cool, let's just not do that. That sounds terrible. I do not want to contribute to like a terrible thing happening in the world by overpopulation, right? And then unbeknownst to me, that was a decision that had already been made by my soul that's part of my path. That's part of my spiritual growth is to be a mother. So that's the first time I think in this conversation we'll touch in on the paradox of life, right? It's like you think it's one thing, but it's really like more.
Yeah.
So the day that I got pregnant with my daughter, I was driving from one city to another, and I was having this whole conversation in my mind. Little did I know that she was having a conversation with me. We actually laugh about it now. I'm driving along and all of a sudden I burst into tears. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get pregnant today. No, like I do all this, like I just knew it.
Yeah.
And part of me was horrified because I should not have children. And the other part of me was like, it's all okay. It's going to be okay. So all I could do was just drive along crying.
Yeah.
And then that was just my own alone time in the car. And it wasn't like a space of like, oh, we're getting pregnant now. It was more like after I realized that, that my body was pregnant, it was like, oh yeah, that whole thing that I just went through was real. And at that point I was in it. It was just like, there was no question that I was pregnant. I was going to have this child. And now what? Because I was unmarried. I didn't have a job. I was a student at San Francisco State. I was 21 years old. Like, what business did I have trying to figure this out, right? But But my life
Yeah.
had been a long string of hot, messy situations all along anyway. And one of my primary ways of learning in this lifetime is through relationship, right?
Yes.
It's through relationship. And I'm a Libra sun, so that's a big fat in your face. It's just going to be that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just learning to navigate what was going on inside, like, how do I do this, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually? And how do I tell my mother, who's told me my whole life to not have kids, and I'm now pregnant,
Right.
and I'm not
And
married,
guess
and
what,
there's no
Mom?
prostate. I was in a relationship with her dad, and ended up marrying him and having another child. But at that time, I didn't know all that was on the horizon. So I was just
Yeah.
taking it one step at a time. So that was kind of like my aha. So there's something bigger at work here. I don't know what it is. I just had enough, presence to
Yeah.
ground in and go, well, I guess I need to do this. And then, like, how do you get it? Like, what medical care do you need? Like, what, like, what is
Yeah.
happening here?
Yeah. You
And
just follow those intuitive
you follow
steps.
it, right? But that's the
How
thing
to
that
take
was
care of it.
really so educational, is that when I took the step to do the right thing, to care for myself and bring space for this child to come in, things would just work out, right?
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like I was swimming upstream and it's all just horrible, it's like I'd make a choice, or I'd have a communication with someone like, this isn't working. Like, it was looking one way, and then I would communicate what I needed, even if it was very awkward or I didn't feel safe doing it. Then
Yeah.
some other energy would come in and assist. And so it was like a really beautiful introduction. The birth itself took 48 hours.
Wow.
2
Yeah.
full days. So
Wow.
that was another initiation into, like, your life is now changing. And so it was the opening of my consciousness and of that space within me to open to something more, something greater than me, and being able to show up and see what that is. Yeah. So that was the introduction.
It's such an initiation. Motherhood is such an initiation on so many levels. I love it. I love that you share about the intuitive way of finding what you need and the grace there of just asking for what you need and it comes to you. Maybe not in the way that you knew or thought it would happen, but you were cared for and guided to what you needed
Right.
to take care of yourself. And I love that you had a conversation with your daughter in spirit beforehand too, and that you later recognized that. I think that's so common. I think a lot of parents might not realize they have those telepathic conversations with what we call the baby being, the being that's in spirit that's about to come through and have a body through you. There's so much communication that happens, and just to be able to recognize that and validate that, it's really powerful because you're already nurturing and creating that relationship with that soul who's going to be your daughter. And I feel like as I'm watching you describe that you already had such a nice relationship even before she came in.
There was some karma there too.
Yeah.
Let's just say high level, it goes something like this. It was at least one lifetime where I was in a position to help her learn, like I was an elder or a teacher, and she really didn't want to listen to me. So the agreement was, well, then I'll just come back as your mom, and you can't get
Right,
over
I'll just make you listen to me.
then I'll be the mom of you.
That's
But
hilarious.
again, we say that lovingly, because that's a lesson for me, because if I've had lifetimes of frustration of this being just won't listen to me, how can I be friendly and accessible and realize that she has her own path, and that she and I are dancing this dance, and how can we love each other and support each other and create space for us both to learn, and not one be right and one be wrong, right? So she is my first and primary teacher in that, and also waking me up to where I couldn't really grok how to protect myself from energies that were harmful. If something came close to her or the other kids, that would awaken in me this protector space that I got introduced to being a mom. So you can call it mama bear or whatever, but
so you had a lot of space and permission to be the mama bear, but maybe not hold that space for yourself. And in raising children, you got to learn how to care for yourself as well.
Yeah, I had to learn that for
Definitely,
myself.
I definitely noticed that with my older son was an initiation for me into self-care. Because I always knew I could take care of everyone else. When you're a mom, you have to take care of yourself. You can't show up, right, and be a good mom if you're not including yourself in that care.
At least a little bit, like,
At least a little bit. But basic levels, right? But then, you begin to notice, like, actually, the more I take care of myself, the better I can show up. The more I can show up and be present for others and bring in that self-care. I love that you were aware of the karmic agreement with you and her. It's really amusing, actually, to know, like, okay, she's coming in because I really wanted to teach her.
Well, that came
Then
over
it's letting
time.
go.
It wasn't like when I was pregnant with her, but as
Right,
as
right.
as the
You
relationship
learned it.
unfolds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You
But
learned it over time as you got to know her. Like, how did you notice that? Did you notice there's this inclination to like really get her? I really need you to learn this.
There was
Was
some
that
of that, but there was also just an awakening within me to continue learning more about how energy and matter go together. Like, what is this
Yes.
intuitive thing? What does it mean to be able to be sensitive and psychic on all these levels? So I met different healers. I was able to have communications with others who were already further along the path in that way than I was, so they could be teachers and mentors. And of course, it's always very interesting to have somebody give you a reading, because then it's like, oh, that resonates. And so
Yes.
I had a lot of help to be able to uncover these nuggets where I was just kind of stuck. And that didn't make me a perfect mom by any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
but it gave me space to understand more about spirit, about souls, about life path. Because again, in my upbringing, there was no room for that. There was no religion, but there also was no spirituality. So everything just
Yes.
was here now,
Yeah.
which is cool
Just
in some way.
body. Yeah.
Right,
It's
but there was
form.
resistance to these other things, like religion is bad or this or that. So there was a
Mhm.
judgment. It wasn't just, but there was more freedom. I
Mhm.
appreciated that. And I really think that gave my whole space more room to move beyond. Like, if I had been programmed by a certain religion to be a certain way, I would have taken that hook, line, and sinker. I would have been like, sure, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. And it might have
Yeah.
been more difficult to have more space to let the creative flow move through me and guide
Right.
me. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to notice how we do set that up as a soul beforehand. We decide, like, what kind of environment am I going to be born into?
Right.
Looking at the agreement with parents and the karma there, but also, do I want to have that structure, like a religious structure or a certain kind of educational structure? Do I want it to be more free and open? And your soul was like, we're going to go for the free and open this time.
Which,
But maybe
yeah, has
deal with some other fun karmic situations.
yeah.
It's great that you mentioned just having guides and teachers and mentors along the way to support that spiritual awakening and just that understanding and depth of learning about soul and seeing and recognizing karmic patterns and just being able to read energy and see energy. How did that support you later with your other children and relationships and healing family karmic
Mm,
patterns?
yeah. Well, that's such a great question. I just want to bring something in now before it floats away,
Yes.
and that is one awareness that came to me through some source. I can't cite the source, but this is not my own thought. But perhaps you've
Yeah.
heard of it, or other people have heard of it, and that is, we choose our own family to come through. Like, we have choice before we come in. And until I
Yeah.
learned that, I was feeling pretty victim-y. Like, I'm like, I have
Right.
no clue why I was born into this family, rah, rah, rah. And as
Yeah.
soon as I realized, whoa, what? I
Yeah.
had choice in this. So then what
Yeah.
were the positive? Why would I have chosen this? Geographical location, DNA, different
Right.
experiences. It's like, then I could see the positive, and it got me out of victim. Like, whew. So that was big. And that came in before I had my last two. But my second child was another step in that awakening of, oh, this being is precious and needs space to develop without the surrounding generational trauma and expectations from, different structures. So his baby being didn't say anything per se, but I was just walking down the hallway. My first husband and I, we worked in a hospital together, and we
Mhm.
worked the same shift, but in different departments. And so we would pass each other in the hallway. So our daughter was already about a year old, and I had
Mhm.
no intention of having more children. I'm like, okay, cool. I did the thing. No more
Yeah.
kids. Like, I've already contributed to one more person on this planet. That's my quota. No more.
Yeah.
No more for you.
Yeah.
And so I walked by him, and I just got this overwhelming feeling, like in every cell of my body, of just this deep, deep love. And based on my relationship with this guy, I'm pretty sure it wasn't his love for me.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't love me. It was just, there was a lot of other stuff going on. But I realized pretty quickly on, after I got pregnant, not long after that, that was actually the soul of my second son saying, hello, I'm
Yeah.
here. And all is well. So that was the beautiful communication from both of them. It's like, it seems like a lot, but everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I actually had my son not even 2 years after my daughter. So they came 1-2, boom, boom. And the joke in our family is they are upstairs in the upstairs land, playing rock, paper, scissors of who's going to go first.
Like, who gets to go first?
You go first.
Yeah.
No, you go first. No, you go first. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go,
Yeah.
but then you better come in because I'm going to be mad at you if you don't. So
we're coming in together
Yeah.
in one way or another. Yeah.
yeah, so that was
Well,
the next step. And it was necessary for me to end the relationship with their father because of the beings and entities and energies that were, on his soul path to discover were damaging and harmful on many different levels to me and very potentially to both of them. So then I had to use that mama bear thing of like, oh my God, now I'm in this situation. How do you get out of this?
Yeah.
So that was the whole next sort of out of the frying pan into the fire initiation of motherhood. But again, learning that in just giving myself a breath to consider what the next best thing could be, asking I hadn't learned to talk to spirit yet. I was still just trying to figure it all out in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just give myself space to say, there is another way. It has to be this way. I just know that this is what the next thing is. And then the next information would come. This is what a restraining order. This is how you file it with the police department. This is all all the nuts and bolts that I had no idea that I could even do to help me protect the family. So those were the steps that happened. And, it's one of those things where the next step is beautiful. And then the next thing that needs to be healed flares up.
Yeah.
So still
just when you thought you got it all settled. Oh, wait.
Oh, no.
There's more. Here's the next layer of healing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that next layer of healing brought me right back face to face with my birth father and everything that had gone on in my childhood that hadn't been healed. So now I just boop, 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 end up back in the same house, in the same small community. Now I have my 2 little ones and, he's much more successful, much more stable, has started a whole new family. And then just the proximity of us being together, a whole other cycle of like, we lit each other up so that we could heal because that which was being held down got activated when we were around each other. So yeah.
Yes.
Flambe.
That seems to be the nature of karmic relationships is you really can't keep things tucked away.
You can try. Yeah.
Like things you're trying to hide from yourself, keep it back there in the back of the closet. You get around that person, that you have that karmic tie with, and it just all comes out.
Right. And it's coming from a place of love. And yet, the harder it's resisted and stuffed down, kind of like that's the equal force that it needs to like be ejected up and out. Because I loved him so much when I was a kid. Like he was my hero. He was everything. And then all the disappointment to realize, oh, he's human and has like a lot of problems. And face to face with, well, now you're both adults. How do you come into a compassionate, balanced place where you can coexist? So again, that's a multi-decade process. It's not like it would be nice if there was a magic little ka-tink.
Yeah.
And poof. But in time and space, it can seem very long, but in spirit, the healing is always possible and whole and within reach. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there similarities between your first husband and your dad?
Well, let me name the way. There's this fun little saying that says you marry your mother or your father, right? Depending on who.
Right, that's why I asked. I was like, this is probably familiar to a lot of people. Like if we haven't healed that, it kind of just plays out in a new form.
Right. So both brilliant in their own way, both even kind of like physically a little bit similar, right? Very transmedium, very connected to spirit, but without riverbanks and without tools, without permission, and a lot of trauma in their lives before they.
That's such a great combination, isn't it? Trauma and mediumship.
And they're just right. And they're beautiful. And I had karma with both of them. So here you go. And so when they met each other, they recognized each other too. And, my dad kind of had a lifelong obsession with him, not in a creepy way, but just like always so like, how's he doing? What's he doing? I need to help him. It's like, how about you just get out of my space? with one of you at a time is enough. But it was learning how to be in relationship to both of these very powerful, at times completely out of control transmediumship men, male energy, in a way where I could stay safe, secure, aware, and compassionate and loving. Because I knew the game after I split with my first husband, I knew the game was to get me to believe that love wasn't real, to get me to believe that I couldn't be who I was meant to be. And so I would literally say out loud to like no one, like, you're not going to kill me. It's going to take more than you to kill me, and love is real.
Yeah. You're not going to take me out, and
That's
I
right.
know that love is
Right?
real.
And so it was,
Wow.
yeah. So I had sort of set up this space where I could go to battle with these energies, which I did on various occasions, and it didn't work out so well. Or I
Doesn't
could
always
just
work
learn,
out, those battles.
or I could learn to stay loving and present and to actually look at what it is and not be afraid. And that was a process too.
Recognize what being loving means to you, right? Because I think that people might hear that and think, oh, was she just, taking it? But it's like, no, being loving means you create boundaries, you create safety. You have, instead of a battle with that, let's just call it nasty energy.
That's a good way to put it.
Instead of going into a battle with the attack energy, that energy that's coming at you and saying, love isn't real and how that shows up, you get to just let go of that whole game, right? And create a new space for yourself. And that's what love looks like. It doesn't look like becoming the doormat to those beings or anything.
And that's the same with compassion. I love the teaching that compassion has no fear. Passion has the ability to hold that loving space, recognize where you are, and also recognize whoever that other is right where they need to be. Now, are you in danger? Are you in imminent danger? Do you need to call 911? Figure that out.
Yeah.
You'll know.
Do you need to
Your
remove yourself physically from the
Right?
situation?
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe you do. And I have, right? So I know what that feels like. I've called 911 on both of those guys. And had to learn how the fallout of all of that. Right. Because at the core, we love each other. All the drama playing out through the body is something else. So remaining anchored in that loving space helps shift the frequency set of where you're matching the nasty that just wants to fight and coming back into a resonance and a coherence of, creating space for that lovingness to inform louder, stronger, or more subtly, or more gentle, or whatever it is, to be able to make that call, not make that call, remove yourself, do the next best thing for you. So it's interesting and really very informative. I learned a lot. I regret nothing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's so helpful to have that perspective of spirit, that clairvoyant perspective, I call it, of seeing, okay, I know that I love this person, like in relationship to your dad, say, I know that I love this person, but I don't love what they're becoming in this moment. And from that clairvoyant perspective, you can see, oh, he's becoming all these other entities that are floating around him because of this space of fear that he's in, right? From whatever unresolved trauma within him, that fear lights up and those other beings take over, right? He kind of checks out like, this is too much for me.
Right.
I'm going to let this other being that unfortunately might be violent or, belligerent or whatever, that other being comes in, to be able to recognize that so you can create a space of love to not reject him, but reject those behaviors, those beings, and just not match it and not play the game and not need to go rescue him, right? Like, okay, he's having his own experience of what happens when he's in fear. And he'll notice, and when I'm in fear and I let these other beings, at some point in his soul's journey, he'll recognize, if I let that fear take over me, I destroy my relationships with people I love.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to that matching frequency set too. There is a clairvoyance space of being able to see it, but in those situations I wasn't necessarily seeing it. I was knowing it, and I was feeling it.
Yes,
I could feel it. And so that brings the body into the conversation, because our body has amazing intake information stations to help us then discern what the next space is. So in terms of clairvoyance, that's something I had to go and study and go into deep repair over, because my ability to see spirit had been so attacked. And so, well, it's not attacked because I'm not the victim, but it just been so overcome by all these energies that didn't want me to see the fear, didn't want me to see the truth. And anytime I'd move towards seeing it, it was just another energetic whack. So I figured, well, cool. We'll just shut that down.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
We got other ways.
My soul's like, that's great for you now. And just saying, you're going to need that faculty turned back on. So go ahead and resist it all you need to. It'll all work out.
We'll come back to that. Yeah.
And that,
but you still knew. You still had the awareness of your knowing and your feeling. You're sensing in the body. The body can tell when someone else who's around you is not themselves, right? There's a different frequency of energy that you're feeling. Like this doesn't feel like him anymore. This feels like
Yep.
a different energy,
Yep.
a different being.
When he would be in full episode, my father, then my body would literally shake because had so much wattage. He was such a channel, like such a channel
Yeah.
for this energy. Like he would shake, he'd have kriyas and all kinds of different things. And he was a lifelong spiritual healer to try and figure this stuff out. He would just
Yeah.
intellectualize it. So I learned about what that was like.
What that looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it only goes so far. But there's this other space of that wanting to rescue part I'd like to touch in a little bit, because when you're genetically connected to somebody and there's a karmic tie and there's a whole lineage of you have to help the person that you love, or this is what it's like to be a good daughter, or that's your father, you must, right? To overcome and to sort of rewire how energy flows through that space is a whole other challenge. So it's like multi-leveled when you're dealing with waking up into your own space. And that's what I mean by flambe. It just lights up all these things and it can be overwhelming to try and take it all on at one time. So just do what's in front of you.
One
Just
step at a
take that
time.
next step. You just need to breathe right now, because maybe that's
Yeah.
it, right? That's sinking back into that still point is like, that's where everything springs from anyway, instead of just being programmed or catapulted into feeling like you have to go do something. That pressure to fix or heal or hide or fight or any of that stuff. It's exhausting. So that's a kind of a key. It's like, how exhausted
But
are
that's
you?
like the first reaction we have within us is it's a survival response. Like I have to fix this.
Right.
You know, I have to heal this because either it's not safe or, you know, he's my dad or he's my loved one or But then we start to recognize there's another way and we can make a new decision.
Right. And along that came with diagnoses from the medical industry and all kinds of different things that we had to navigate for his lifetime. And all that is good data. And in the diagnoses and in the, the chemical prescriptions to help balance the brain and all those other things help to a certain degree. However, there needs to be an agreement within that person's soul that they're going to do all the things to the best of their ability. And even if it's not perfect, I still had to learn to accept those were his choices to go off the medication. He loved being in an episode because it felt good. I then had to, like you say, I could say, I don't consent to playing with you on these levels. I will always love you and I will always be here for you. I just can't interact with you because of the behaviors here at this level and multidimensionally. See, my kids are all psychic, just like yours and just like all kids. So they could sense when I was in crisis. They grew up watching me handle all these energies and it affected them. How did it affect them? Well, you can have conversations with them. They're all very aware. And it became more and more clear, especially with my last two, my current youngest, is that when I take care of myself and balance my whole field, the house is balanced, home is balanced. It's so clear because I have twins who turned 22 today. Happy birthday. And they're so sensitive because they grew up in a house where they were welcomed to be sensitive and to have tools and things. For example, if I even thought about raising my voice or if I got a little bit stressful, like they would leave the room. They're like fish, it's just like, it's like, well, you yelled at me. It's like, I know I didn't even raise my voice, but energetically it felt like that to them.
The energy,
Right. So this is one of those things that you don't know until you know, like, oh my God. Yeah. Maybe telepathically I'm super loud.
Right.
Or like my crisis and my stress is like seeping out. Am I a portal person right now? Like, what am I carrying? Right. So that whole tool basket of learning to be present and grounded and connected and, as loving as possible is, pretty handy.
Our children are such teachers for that. Like you said, they can sense before you're even like communicating out loud anything, but they can sense, oh, she's upset. She's lit up about something. There's going to be some, let me just walk away.
Leave the room.
It's such a barometer, right, for what's going on internally. I love that. We get to have teachers present in our lives. And when we're mothers, our children are our daily teachers to remind us to be present, to show up in our most loving self, and really have someone checking that every month.
Yeah, and as your children grow up, that's been quite the thing. I saw a title to a book that just cracked me up. It said, "Adulting." Being the parent of adult children. I always thought that was an oxymoron. Like, are they adults? Are they children? Like, what is this? Your sons and your daughters that are now adults that used to be kids. It was said, keep your mouth shut and your door open.
Love it.
It was that sweet. It's like, well, it's a little bit harsh. However, I get what he's pointing to. in
Right.
that these are now and always have been their own beings with their own life path, with their own spiritual awareness. What is
Yeah.
my agreement now? Do you can upgrade, you can update your agreements with beings. You can do that.
Yeah.
And how is it that I need to let go of them being children or being the guardian of them at certain levels so that they can have the freedom that they need to do whatever it is that brings them
Yeah.
joy. Sometimes not so
Yeah.
easy.
It's such a different phase of motherhood when our children are grown, when they're no longer children, as you're pointing out, to just let go of all the roles we've played, to update what is my role now? Well, maybe it's just open door, closed mouth.
That's right.
I mean, I get what that's a funny way of saying it, but yeah, just not needing to overshare. Like maybe if they come to us to seek, what do you feel about this, or what do you think about this, or what do you see about this? Great, we're available, but we're not constantly chasing after them and telling them all the things we see and know about their experience. Right? Because, yeah, just trusting that they have their own wisdom as a soul and they have their own lessons, so to speak, experiences that they need to have to learn from.
Right.
And we really do learn much better from our own experiences rather than from somebody telling us about theirs.
It can be a helpful, antidote. And then it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, that's good. And
yeah.
also really being aware of how my energy affects them even as adults. So if I had a worry thought, I can turn that worry into a prayer. Or be having that genetic connection. That does not mean that I have an open door to like bombard and stomp into whatever they're doing at the moment. It means that I have some intuitive knowing. So what is mine to do? Do I just notice it and hold space? Do I say a prayer? Do I invoke the universe to bring in a loving space for our whole family?
Yeah.
There's many ways that we can be a positive influence on a very subtle level and just keep holding that space of love and compassion. And that's a lifelong journey as well, especially like in my DNA. Worry equated love. Like if you didn't worry about somebody, then you don't love somebody, right?
You don't love someone if you're not worried about them. Yeah. That's a fun family program to unmatch folks.
Right? And
But
then
it's great that you named that because I'm sure that's the case for many people, right? You
yeah,
have to be worried about someone if you love them.
right. If it's absolutely written into the game, and being able to see that and let it be data to inform you. And if you have, like me, I had a lot of like alarms going off when I was a kid. So I was worried about all kinds of things. And so it showed me that the world was a place to worry about, right? So then it's like you're becoming your own trauma and your own information. That's all those other pictures or energies that are lined up and like plugged into that genetic space saying, yes, it's all true.
Yes. See, there is something to worry about.
That's right. Evidence shows.
Someone
Right.
prove it to you.
Right.
But I love how you said you transform that into a prayer, right? So you're aware that when those worries light up, so to speak, that's, oh, this is information. This is maybe something that needs a hello, right? Something that needs some awareness and some love brought to it and some compassion, or just bring it to awareness and offer a prayer instead of a fear.
Right? Because those fears are really tricky, because the worry then leads the monkey mind down into creating the worst case scenario. Like,
Right.
don't leave that to my imagination, because I can create some dark
Yeah.
stuff.
We're so creative if we
So it's
let
like,
that,
whoa,
if
whoa,
we let
whoa.
our
Right.
if we
Is
let our
this
creativity spiral into fear, yeah, we
right?
create some pretty
Right.
unfun situations.
Yeah. Right. It's like, is that really what you would like to use your energy for? That's kind of like a baseline. Like, is that
Yeah.
really the best use of your presence right now? Oh,
Right.
well, maybe not.
It's like, what's that saying? Worry is creating what you don't want, right? So when you shift that worry into a prayer, you're creating what you would like instead of what you would not like. It's a beautiful awareness. Yeah. The job of a mother, it never ends. It just transforms into more having awareness, saying hello to each of our souls that we've brought in and supported in having a body, just being able to say hello to them in spirit and
Yeah.
give them space.
On the
Yeah.
other side of that, too, for me, one of my growth edges has been not to try to fight the world to make it a safer place so my kids can have their space. Right.
Yeah.
Because
That would be a good job.
right.
I'm sure nobody ever takes that job on, do they?
Right. Right. It's impossible
You
to
gotta
be
fix the whole world to make it safe for your kids.
That's
Oh my
right.
gosh. What a burden. But yeah, I am sure that many of us unconsciously attempt that, right?
Right. Or
Yeah.
consciously. And so
Yeah.
no, this is the thing, I'm sure of it.
Right.
So I have my little things that I get triggered and about. And, my kids are great. They'll look at me like, Mom, that's just and then name whatever it is. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, stand down, soldier. Yes. Okay.
Stand
Bye.
down.
But there is
Let it go.
that basic survival instinct within the organic human
Yeah.
that has sort of been distorted to think of
Yeah.
things as a threat and that we have to fight it instead of using our energy to recognize it, make sure that we're not in danger, help to stabilize whatever if needed, and then have that invocation become that magnetic gravitational pull to have the universe and the world reflect back to you what it is that is loving and what it is you would really like to have. That carries a lot of power. It's just buried under a lot of worry and fear and other energies that just come with the world, like wake up and breathe it in,
The big fear soup in the world.
Right. But then on a spiritual level, you wake up and you breathe in the truth. And that is the transformation that seems to be a global growth period.
We are in one giant global growth period. Shifting from fear to just trust and truth.
Trust. Mm-hmm. And when we look for the love, that's when I actually find it. When I'm looking for the worst thing, I'm gonna find it because I'm looking for it.
Oh,
and when
you'll find what you're looking for. Whatever it is.
I set my GPS for it.
Right.
And then when I'm looking for love or grace, it takes a different set of receptor, mechanisms within my field to be able to interface with it. And so that's, being able to tune into the more subtle realms that aren't quite so loud and screaming in your face. So it's a big frequency set we're here to play with. So thankfully we have the the biofield that can tune into exactly what we need for our karmic and spiritual growth. It's quite elegant.
Yes. I love that you point out that it's a frequency shift and it's a choice. Are you setting your GPS, your internal GPS for fear, the things that you're worried about? Because you'll find that if that's where you're tuning your inner GPS to. But if you're attuning that frequency to love and grace, that's what you'll find. But like you said, it's a different set of receptors, right? It's like a whole different switch comes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good to be aware of that. And
it's
and notice the difference within when we're attuned to that and welcoming, like we're really just creating space for that to come in because it's always there. It's just quieter, like you said, too. The fear is really loud,
Well, we're actually matching the collective fears that are bouncing around too. So that amplifies it and makes it all the more real.
It's so much more loud,
that our ancestral line have been holding for generations because it was necessary to survive the Holocaust or whatever was, you were up against. It's a lot of subtle and loud energies that we're learning to manage simultaneously. Like, is this really even mine in this now moment? Right. Is this really mine? Yes. Okay. What can I do about it? Not okay. What can I do about it?
Oh, yes, it's true. So many of us, especially the sensitive, more psychic, attuned souls, are carrying around a lot of the collective heavy energy because we feel it and we might think it's ours. So we go into trying to solve it or resolve it in our own body or in our own space. It's a very good first question, right? Is this even mine?
Yeah. And the ego's always going to say, yes, of course it is.
Of course it is. It is your problem.
You feel it, therefore it is. So it might take a few minutes of breathing into it and being able to have tools that can help you get more grounded or come back into your own core. I like to call it your own core column of light, your own space to be able to begin to broadcast what my inner lovingness actually means to me. And then if nothing else, I'll feel better. Somebody else might still be in fear and panic and I can love them being in fear and panic. And that is actually a skill to be able to love somebody who's in crisis without jumping into that frequency with them to solve it.
Yeah, it's so important to be able to, that's what compassion is, to love and be with someone in that crisis space, in that fear space, in that traumatized space, without becoming that with them, right? You can stay in your own, I love what you call it, own clear core column of light.
Yeah.
Core column of light.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful image too.
Right. And then our spherical space sort of radiates out from that with all of the amazing electromagnetic frequencies that we just naturally are on many different levels. Yeah.
Yes, we are not just physical bodies. We are these
What?
whole body electric. We're this whole field of amazing energy. I want to talk about that in relationship to something we kind of touched on before with mental illness in
Oh,
family members, loved ones. I think that's so important to address in the world. I don't know if anyone else is having this conversation of just what is mental illness on that energetic level? What is really going on? Because it's not just the body having some brain chemistry off. Yes, there's that component of the brain chemistry, but there's so much more going on a spiritual level that, like you said, you notice with your dad, if he's not addressing that, right? If he's only addressing it on a physical level, there might be some medications he could take for the brain chemistry, but it's not going to really get to the core of it if it has to do with fear, trauma, and other beings taking over the body.
right.
This is a huge hello to the relationship between mediumship and mental illness when we combine the ability that a lot of souls have in very mediumship oriented bodies, right? If you said the DNA is oriented towards mediumship and you combine that with unresolved trauma, you're going to get what looks like on the outside mental illness, but it's really mediumship gone wrong.
A little out of
Out of
control.
control mediumship
Yeah.
or
Yeah, so
yeah.
you're just a lot of electrical frequency flows without a lot of discernment or organizational guidelines that can really help bring clarity. It really begins a chaotic spin. That's been my experience with it. And totally, it's a multi-dimensional space because the body gets blamed for something that's in the mind, and I think we've come to an agreement that the mind is not located in the body. But then but it is the body's fault. There's a brain chemistry imbalance. But so my experience with it has been in my life, is particularly with this primary figure, is that what I came to realize is that he who is my father, his soul, incredibly beautiful, very loving, very traumatized outside the body and inside the body. You can't really have one without the other unless you're healing
Yeah.
in this case.
Both ways.
And that other people that I've met along the way that have been struggling with diagnoses or things, that they are incredibly sensitive, loving beings that have taken on these other energies for one reason or another. And again, at the soul level, it's to learn and grow, right? And then it becomes more of a challenge, so to speak, when those beings that are not that person that you're loving is now speaking to you from behind the eyes and through the mouth.
Right.
And using the body electric to like radiate hatred or like I'm gonna get you
Right.
kind of energy. What's the beginning to opening that space to have the loving healing be able to
Where do you
interface
start?
with these astral spaces within our field, within our our etheric body, within all the cells of our physical body? It's just all frequency sets that are tuned to different frequencies. And so it's also been my experience that when someone in the family is struggling with something called mental illness, and there's a spectrum, right? Some people, they got out of whack, they were in crisis. For me, watching my dad when he was stressed out, the stress cortisol chemical led to sleeplessness, which led to, other things happening in the brain. And he was very strong, so he could stay pretty present through it, which made it even more difficult because he really thought it was him.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
okay. So being able to step back from that, you can check my own field because part of that game is what would come at me is it's you. You're the crazy one. You're the one with the
Right.
problem. It would try to
Your fault.
transfer into my field, right? And that never felt right
Yeah.
to me. It was like, no, I'm pretty sure this is you. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that some people might fall for that and then try to figure it out through
Right.
their own system. And then it becomes like this energetic being or fog or cloud that sort of envelops the whole family trying to figure it out and having it flow through different variations. So it
becomes this cloud of confusion and kind of blame. It's this person's fault. It's that person's
right.
fault.
And then the energy of
Body's fault.
emotions, like I felt this, so therefore it's real and it has
Yeah.
to be your fault. So it just, you can see
Right.
just talking about it, all this chaos energy comes up. And it's
Yeah.
just as simple at this point for this conversation, just to ground it all and to know that we are capable of clarity and to be willing to open to whatever combination of healing can happen for whoever is struggling with it. Meaning it's not a one pill fixes everything. It's not a one, energy healing fixes everybody. It's being in communication with spirit and creating space for whatever seems so out of control and chaotic to begin to heal, to begin to come back to a recognition of itself as love. And that quiets things down for me. But I had to live in a lot of chaos and a lot of loudness in order to have that contrast and to realize, well, that doesn't work. Let's try it again. Well, that doesn't work. Right. And so it's really this space of, like you said, mental illness. It's a multifaceted space. And because we are truly at our core, my experience has been we are spirit, we are love. We have a soul that helps, order and organize that. But the soul can have wounds. The soul can be connected into other energies that are distorted. And so when you have distortion and trauma at the soul level and the body level, then the healing can be offered to all these different levels. And do we have to know all the ins and outs? Do we have to follow the flow chart? Maybe not. Maybe just simply just holding the space for it to be healed within whoever that other is enough to start the process. Because even with my dad, I knew it would be lifetimes. And it really made me sad because I wanted him to be all better in his lifetime because that made sense to me. But when I released him to his path several years ago, it released me to my path. Right. When dealing with somebody who's really difficult, the chaos is really difficult, being able to come back to the self and make that next step best decision for yourself. There is no perfect answer because it's especially, okay, I'm going to touch in on something we hadn't brought in yet. If there's alcohol and drug addiction that's added into it, it complicates it even more because there's a whole other level. What I've seen is like there's the alcohol beings and there's the meth beings, which are like a whole other off the wall, situation. There's all these other layers that just can seem really overwhelming. And because we don't have a structure here in 3D yet to be able to welcome all that in that I've seen anyway, I'm sure there's some rehab places that, are working to multidimensionally heal people. I hope really give them the quiet that they need to be able to begin to order and organize. Then it's really that PhD in compassion. And trusting the universe that even if it looks like something that I can't solve, then cool. Then something else can come in or many things can come in that can help me be in right relationship to that chaos. So for example, as my dad deteriorated, he became even more all of that. And I had to not speak to him for the last year of his life. I managed all of his affairs. I made sure that everything was fine. He went every day to undo everything that I did, but I couldn't actually talk to him anymore because it was too much for my system to try to keep managing all of that and manage everything in 3D. So I just loved him from a distance. I just chose to step back and I love you so much. This is how I can love you. I can't talk to you. I can't give you what you need on this level. I don't know if anybody can. This is I had to, my ego mind was like, that's a failure. You're a bad daughter. Even after everything we went through, I still had to deal with that. And then at the end of the day, I would have to make peace with that and say, this is what my love story with him looks like. It doesn't look like anybody else's love story. And he knows that he's loved on some level. And I can trust that the universe knows him and knows what he needs. And so I commend it all to the God of his heart. And so that was my experience with it. So just in a nutshell, these diagnoses are pointing out to where the transmediumship space where humans interface with non-physical reality, whether it be a thought form, a being, a program, technology, even at this point, different frequencies affect our well-being. So when we can care properly for our physical body, nutrition's such a huge part of it, because it's frequency and it absolutely affects how you think, which affects how you feel. It's all connected.
How you're able to even be in your body, right? If as a soul, you're vibrating at a certain frequency, that's pretty high, but the types of frequencies you're putting into your body aren't a match for that, you're not going to be able to be in there. Right.
Yeah. So, and it's being able to use whatever prescription frequency changers from Western med that's available. Maybe that's super helpful. Maybe that's the bridge to the next thing. Maybe it's a forever thing. You just have to keep trying it and seeing what's working. So nobody that I can see has all the answers yet. It's one of these things where we're all figuring out together. And
I think because it's not the same for everyone. Like you said, each person with a mental illness, they have their own unique healing path. And for some, it might look like completely soul related. And for others, they're starting with the physical level, addressing certain chemical imbalances, and then they get into the soul level healing. It's a kind of merging and crossing of the two and different steps at different times for different people. So there isn't like one solution,
one size fits all
solution. But just what we're saying hello to is addressing that if we're not healing on that soul level and on that level of looking at the mediumship of the person, right? How much are they letting other energies into their space, and how is that related to deeper soul level traumas or traumas within their childhood in this lifetime? If we're not addressing that, we're just looking at it as, oh, you just take this medication and that'll fix the brain chemistry. That's not going to address it, but it might be a bridge. Like you said, it might be a necessary tool along the way of navigating that deeper healing.
Right. Yeah.
So much deep
structure,
healing is needed, though, in those
right?
situations.
When the structure is set to make the body the focal point and make the body the thing that needs to change for everything else to, it's yes, and it's part of that paradox. It's like, yes, the body is super important because it's like where you ground into this world. And how are all the other energies that are feeding the body and interfacing and communicating with the body affecting this space? And, we're in this paradigm shift within our own medical system. So that healers and people who hold the ability to, surgically do things or understand chemical things, we can all share together and, share information and come up with something that we hadn't even imagined before. It's not either or, it's a both and. Yeah. And it's all a work in progress.
Yeah. We're learning as we go.
We are learning as we go.
I do hope with this paradigm shift that there can be more interaction and communication sharing between those who have mastered things on that physical level and those of us who see and know things on that spiritual level that really do need to be addressed in order for the deeper, more holistic or integral healing to happen. We'll see.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned. I think that's the paradigm shift that's needed right now. We can't just only address things on the physical. It has to be, like you said, both the spiritual and the physical, because we are multidimensional beings. We're not just bodies, but we do have a body.
And there seems to be like a lot of talk these days about how the body needs to be fixed or chipped or, upgraded. To me, that's very almost amusing because from what I can tell, we're just sort of coded to update.
Yes.
And so it's sort of the update to that code is to allow in the shift of frequencies to have the nourishment from lovingness and from these beautiful cosmic flows that are coming in. And, there's a lot of loudness to be afraid of the earth changes or to be afraid of the body breaking down or, spoiler alert, the body's designed to deteriorate over time.
We're all going to die.
It's kind of coded that way. And it seems to me that the more we bring in our lovingness and our true, authentic soul essence, the healthier the body is. So we can have a lot longer lifespan and be more at choice to how the body slowly deteriorates over time or what have you. So the human body is miraculous and amazing and multidimensional. And so I just want to give a shout out to what all of us have innately given to us. Might seem like a lot, or we can be sort of tricked into thinking that something outside of us can fix that. It can help us heal. And yet the healing energy is given to us within our own connection to soul and spirit. 24/7. It's free. It's available. It's green energy. It's renewable. It's all the things. It's organic.
It's regenerative. It's very regenerative.
Pesticide free. Yeah.
Yeah. Free range, all of those things.
That's right.
No, it's so great what you pointed out, that it really is our own essence of spirit, our own soul beingness that heals the body. And the more we're able to come in and be present in that loving frequency, which is really the essence of our being, that's what heals the body. And just really creating more space for that and allowing that is what gives us more success on our healing path, but also just more peace. So we're not in that space of needing to figure out what thing out there is going to fix this or heal this or solve this. Those might be useful tools along the way, but essentially what is healing you is yourself and your presence as spirit in the body.
Yeah.
So important.
The cells of our body really dig like our own spiritual essence. It's like,
You're like, yay.
You love
they
me.
dig it. Yeah.
I feel good.
More of that, please. Yeah. They get super happy.
Right. And I think some of the challenges can be that when your soul or my soul essence comes in and hits a wounded spot, then my own system can act as if my lovingness is something to be attacked and to be fought and to be resisted. Right.
That's the problem.
So it's like, So
instead of the solution. Yeah.
we can actually reject our own energy
Because it
unknowingly.
starts to bring out that.
It starts to, yeah, off gas all the stuff
Yeah.
that's been built up around the wound, around whatever that nugget is that went in there and went, ow,
Yeah.
whatever that pain receptor got triggered.
Right.
So this is being able to know within yourself the nuances of like, is this something new? Is this something old? Or is this like, do I need to scream for help right now? Because some
Right.
of the most intense pain that I have felt, especially in the last several years, has been when I'm going through a spiritual healing. I'll hit a spot and, I'll just be la, 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 being my happy self going along, and all of a sudden, wham.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes I'm even on the floor going, oh my God. And then it's like, what are my basic 101 tools
Yeah.
to be able to keep
Go back
breathing
to
and
it.
see what is this thing? And, and the miraculous thing is once that energy moves, I'm back up as if it didn't even happen.
Isn't that amazing? It's like energy is so real. Like that is, you hit that pocket of energy, and if you didn't know, if you didn't have
Right.
tools, if you didn't have awareness, you might think, "Oh my God, I'm about to die," or I've got some crazy illness all out of the blue all of a sudden. But when you look at it, give it space. What is this energy? What pocket of pain have I been releasing, or whatever it may be? Whew, once it releases, it's like, oh yeah, it's like it never
That's right.
happened.
And
Here I
I
am
will be the
again.
first one to tell you I have several healers on speed dial on my phone, and I am happy
Yeah.
to be part of other people's healing teams as well, because when we work together in community, it really
Yes.
does help,
So yeah, it's so
especially
helpful
when
to
we hit
have
a really big thing. Yeah.
yeah. We need our team, our community, like, because sometimes we can't see when we're in that pain, right? That pocket of pain is releasing or something. And when we know that we need to look at it, right? But we don't necessarily have the capacity when we're in that much pain. It's like, somebody look at this for me.
Yeah.
It's so good to have psychic friends, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I absolutely love about healing modalities that are coming forth within people's creative flow now. We have so many people that are so adept and trained at all these different things that a session with
Yeah.
one person who can like maybe name 3 of the things and help bring it to light, we can then just shift and change and have it. It's not like somebody's doing it to us or for us. They're just helping us have more
Bring it.
space to get senior to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting into the ancestral traumas or the stuff that's actually hardwired into, the genetic workings of your body. Yeah. So my oldest daughter, she's a teacher. And one of the things she brought up in class that like hit me right in the chest is she's like, our ancestors didn't just give us trauma. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, that's right.
Right.
Thank you. I think
I
there were
know.
several of us in the room that went, oh, wow, I was just kind of blaming them for all the things.
Right. There's so many gifts too. It's
Yeah, right.
it's both and. It's not
Right?
just the bad.
So how about if I like tune into more of the gifts of what that is
Yeah.
and just see that my soul had a match for whatever this genetic line is so that I could get into the deeper places that left to my own devices, I'd be like, too busy. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm good
Why
with that.
That's not
It's true. Getting back to like our souls do choose before we come in, that the whole scenario, right? The genetics, the parents, the environment. We choose those genetics and parents and environment really so we won't keep avoiding the thing that we've been avoiding.
And we can add
Like we
into
have.
that periods of time and transformation in the collective. So hello, everybody
Yes.
watching this. It's going through this collective growth period together. Not only
Yes.
did we choose this, we also chose the timing of it just to
Yes.
make sure that the things that needed to get lit up
Yeah.
could do so. Because sometimes
Yeah.
it's buried pretty deep. I think of humans as kind of like an archaeological dig,
Yeah.
There's these layers and strata and all these things. And
Yes.
not that we can carbon date it, but
Yeah.
when we get to, it's an energy storing
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We store all this energy. The body is like a big storage, deep
Right?
storage facility. Like you said, all the layers and things are deeply hidden within us.
Yeah. And thankfully we have a energy body that can be worked with and healed to help
Yeah.
have clarity there. I didn't know
Yeah.
that until I was in my 30s. I'd heard about it, but it didn't mean anything to me. And then when I heard about it, it didn't mean anything. I actually had to sit with it, like a kid with so if you plug this in here and then you do that, like,
Yeah.
each one of us
Get
gets
to
to,
experience it. Yeah. Yourself. Yeah.
yeah.
The difference between like hearing about it and thinking about it or intellectualizing it or just let me play around with this for myself, right? Let me
Right.
experience. Let me get in there, dig in there myself and experience it. And
Yeah.
then you go, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And having being blessed with amazing spiritual teachers who are very senior in that space and being able to just match that certainty of like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Which gave me a whole different experience of like, I now have space to find out for myself.
Yes.
Where everything else that I learned in academia, it was just more archived knowledge that I was supposed to memorize or somehow bring to life.
Yeah.
It didn't really interest me a lot. Not
Yeah.
that there's anything wrong with it. For me and my inquisitive nature needed to get into some of that relationship stuff space of like me in relationship to this energy or that person or this experience or being a mother of 4 when I thought I'd have none. Ha ha ha.
It's so fun to discover what our souls set us up for, you know? Oh, is this what I was planning to do? Oh, yeah.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah. So much learning along the way. One more thing I wanted to point out that you had touched upon is just that difference between the academia learning or the intellectual learning. And it kind of starts there, you know, we get curious about something, but then when we really dive into it for ourselves more experientially, it's within us, you know, we're going within and looking within about that relationship we've had. Or so instead of thinking about it out here, it becomes this inner exploration, that archaeological dig into the treasures within us of our soul experiences and karmic paths and all that there is to unravel. And it really, yeah, that learning, it's like different for each person. It's unique for each person. And yet there's a certain path through it and forward that can be taught, right? But each person does have to experience it for themselves.
And trusting that your own interest and your own inquisitive nature will guide you to what it is that you need to know next. And it could be something that you're totally new your whole life, like I knew that, or it could be like I had no idea. And then the next door opens. So this world is an amazing place, filled with so much on so many different layers and levels. It's a blessing and a challenge. It's a paradox. I'm really glad that it brought me together with you over these last years to be able to get to know you.
I know.
Share stories.
I love the similarities on our path too. I mean, so many differences and just so many similarities that I'm learning about more and more each time we talk. Love that. Yeah, so much to learn about in this world.
Yeah.
It's great. Staying open to that and trusting your inner guidance for each next step. It's so helpful, so important. Yeah. Thank you for communicating with me today, Yvonne.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being this beautiful bright light that just leads from your core column of light, your heart, your voice, your whole presence. It's always just been a joy to know and get to know further. So thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Yvonne. Aw, I love your light and being present with you as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on The Higher Vibe today. We will see you next time. Yay! Hello. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.